Hello, my name is Manny Marquez and welcome to the Swoosh Technologies blog, a Platinum Siemens business partner for CAD, CAM, and PLM solutions. In today's topic, we will talk about how to convert 2D to 3D, part 2. Kind of a recap on part 1, we used the regions method to blog was posted on December 10th of last year. If you have not viewed it, please go to our website. If you go to webinars and resources and click on the tutorials and blogs, you'll be able to see it there. On today's post, we're going to talk about using the project curve, regions versus project curve, kind of a recap on there, kind of show you exactly the difference between both functions. And then create an associative 2D drawing from a 3D model, a master model method. So essentially you will start with something like this, just like we showed it on the part 1, and obviously create the model, and then associate this 2D drawing with the model, and basically you're left with this. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to NX, kind of show you the workflow there. A lot of these I'm just going to simply go through them. I'm not going to go in detail because they're already shown already on the part 1. So I'm simply going to say OK. And kind of like I said, simply going to go ahead and hide those dimensions like I stated on the first part. We don't use those dimensions. They're not driving the sketch. So the first thing we want to do is first go to settings here. I'm gonna check this display object. The reason I'm doing that is because I want the colors to match, not to match the background. So that's the kind of reason I'm doing that. Next thing I'm gonna do is simply window and select the front view here, and I'm gonna tell it yes, that's my front view. Apply, and obviously that's gonna be my right view, and say OK. Not that I've got those two views there, simply select both of them, and then make sure you have the view list here, front and right. Make sure it's set to sketch, and say OK. Obviously what that's going to do, that's going to take me into my 3D. Here, what I want to do is simply come back and place a datum coordinate system here, because when you do that, when you go through that workflow there, it doesn't do that for you. You kind of have to do that manually. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to simply click on the front view there and go to the sketch there, and at this point you could go ahead and select, let's say for example, if I want to trim let's say this, and I'm going to do that as I stated on the first part. The reason I did that is just to make it easier to make selections when we're trying to bring that into my coordinate system, which is obviously that's what I want to do. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to select and I'm going to go to move command. I am going to select point by point, and I'm going to zoom a little closer here, so I could go ahead and select that right here, and I'm going to go right there. Obviously you can see it gives you a preview there. I'm going to hit apply because I want to select obviously the front one, the right one, and basically do the same thing here. Go from there to there and say OK this time. Once I've done that, so here's where you kind of where the difference between the first post and this other method here. So for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and hide that right view there, so I could kind of give you an idea of what desired. So like I said, you basically have two options here. The first one is the one I showed you, right? That was the regions. So I'm going to kind of quickly give you a recap on that, so you kind of get an idea what I'm talking about here. And obviously I want to make sure that I select regions and boundary curves. And as I do that, I'm going to go to this view right here. You can see that it's going to go ahead and start select the regions here, and I'm going to simply start clicking away here, so you kind of get an idea. And there. Alright, so you can see what I've done here. I've selected that region, and again, this is the region method, just kind of recap on what I've talked about. And I'm going to go ahead and simply select that. Now traditionally, you would think you would have a sketch here, right? But if I go actually to go to the sketch, there's nothing there. And again, this is something that if you were to just simply want to go ahead and create a 3D model, you know, maybe not thinking that you might modify this part using traditional sketch methods and so on. So that's basically the difference here, right? That I kind of went in there and show you what we could go and select the regions. Obviously, that's not what I want. Okay, so the method I'm going to use is I'm going to go ahead and reset that again, and this time I'm going to go ahead and select the sketch section here, and this is where you see the difference here, where I'm going to select the sketch here, and obviously select that plane there, and I'm going to select OK. So what this is going to do, this is going to take me into sketch environment, which now this is where I select the project curve. Alright, so this is where the difference is. Now I'm basically going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the sketch from my original sketch right here, and simply start selecting those curves there. And you kind of see I'm going to simply start selecting here and kind of work my way in here. You see that because I have it connected curves there, so I went in there and selected those, and go back and do this one right there, and go ahead and select this one right here. And I know that I went over here, which is fine. Trim corner, that's the one I want to use it, and do the same thing here. And you see this, notice when I did that, it went in here and kind of created this rendering, if you will. The way you would do that is actually if you go to preferences, and if I go to sketch, I want to make sure I have shading regions turned on. That kind of gives you nice feedback there. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm done there. So the next thing I'm going to do is, because the fact that you are selecting sketch here, you do want to apply dimensions. So since I am using the new solver here, so it's by simply selecting dimensions here, the curves there, and kind of, you know, decide which method you want to use to go ahead and apply dimensions. I'm going to simply randomly select you know, just say yes, I'm going to go ahead and apply those, so you have an idea of what needs to be done. I'm going to select here to here, there, and you can kind of idea what maybe I want to do this one right here, and so forth. So obviously you come back and, you know, fully constrain the whole sketch here, but it is creating sketches here. So obviously it's applying the dimensions that are properly applied to that particular curve there. Okay, so I want to move that a little bit here, and maybe put another one there, so you can kind of idea. But anyway, so that's how you definitely constrain your sketch there. You see at the bottom here, obviously I have more to add to make my sketch fully constrained. So let's assume that's what's the case. So at that point, I'll go ahead and click finish, and this time I'm going to go ahead and select, and you can see that if I click up OK, now if I go back to kind of prove my point here, so you can kind of see what the difference what I'm talking about, I'm going to go back to edit parameters and go back to that sketch there, and now you see that I can actually come back and hide that sketch here. And you can see here there is a sketch there, and obviously if you need to modify that, that's what you need to do. You need to go ahead and modify that sketch. So there's the difference between the first post and this one right here. And obviously we're modifying the sketch. If you need to modify it, you can do that here. Alright, so we're going to continue on. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and now obviously finish that off there. I'm going to go ahead and click extrude this time, and basically do the same thing again. I'm going to go ahead and select that plane right here, my XZ plane, and say OK, and obviously that takes me back in there. And again, this time I'm going to go ahead and remove material using this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same command here, project curve. Sometimes you want to make that you don't want to make it associative, because if you do want to modify that, you don't want to make that associative. So just kind of a quick tip there. So I'll go ahead and select those right there, and another one there. and say okay. The next thing, I'm simply go ahead and place a line, because I'm gonna go ahead and use the command here, kind of finish that off there, and you can see that it kind of created that shading in there. And going back again to the same thing, where I could come back and place dimensions in here, do that right there, and maybe one from here to here. Actually, that'd be my and another one here, and place it right there. And again, kind of shows that I could go ahead now, and this time go ahead and click finish. So now basically what is done here is I remove material from there. You can see that you could dynamically drag that, or just as long as push it out there. And yeah, that's pretty much how I want it. Say okay. And now you can see here that I need to come back and remove more material. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing again. Select the extrude command, and again I'm going to go ahead and select this plane here, and say okay, and that takes me back into that. This time I'm going to select some these sketches here, and again use the project curve command, and I'm going to simply select that, and I'm going to do shift select that one because that's not what I wanted. There you go. And again, I could go ahead and you know, if I wanted to go ahead and do the whole thing, which is, there it is right there, exactly what I'm looking for. And again, place in your dimensions, you know, that's what it is there. And maybe you want it from the center here to here, and select obviously the correct one. And again, just simply start placing dimensions. I'm simply randomly select the dimension there, just kind of make a point there. It might not be the proper way to constrain this one, but just kind of for demo purposes, showing that yes, I could go ahead and apply those dimensions to the sketch that I'm creating on the fly here, using obviously the overall dimension there. I want to do that, and then come back and let's say use this one right here, and let's say that's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'll click finish. But this, notice obviously that's not the direction I want to go. I want to go this direction inside the remove material. I am going to turn on my other dimension here because I need to extract or use reference points from the right sketch here. So, but this time I'm going to go ahead and use the measure method here, and I am going to select point to point. So I'm going to go from this point here to this other point here, and then come back and select vector, and actually that's what I'm looking for, and say okay. And you see what it's done there, exactly what I'm looking for. And if I look at it from this view here, you can kind of see exactly what the geometry that I'm using to extract and then actually remove or add material. And you can see it's perfectly matching with the either the front view or the right view here. Okay, so the next one is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and remove material here as well. So I'll basically repeat the same thing again. So we'll go ahead and use that, and I'm going to go ahead and create a plane here, and this time because I am going to remove all the material, this time since I already have geometry there, I could actually come back and use, I'm going to go ahead and hide both sketches, because now you can see that I'm actually going to be using the project curve and actually using the geometry from the actual part. So you could use both ways. You can go ahead and use geometry from the sketch, or extract geometry from edges of your part model already. So I'm going to do that same thing again. Basically create another line here, and then come back and use the trim here. Oh, I didn't put one here, which is fine. I could go ahead and place another one here. Thought I did that. And come back and select that. There we go. And another one here. All right, there we go. So now once we get that shading in there, I'm gonna go ahead and go to this view right here, and I'm gonna turn on the right view here, because obviously I need to get to this point right here. So basically do the same thing again. I'm gonna go in obviously the other direction, which I was gonna put in remove material, and basically do the same thing again. Go back and go measure and point from here. And I don't need to go to vector because that's exactly where I wanted it. So I'm gonna say okay, and you can see that it placed it right exactly where it needed to go. And you can see where it takes time to take shape. You can see that it's taking the correct material there and applying it to the right points there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I need to go ahead and place a hole. So I'm going to go back and turn on this view right here. Now for this, there's two options you could go about doing this. The first one is if I need to go back and create a sketch on this plane right here. Say yes, and I just use the project curve and simply copy that, and you can see that it's going to go ahead and place that curve right on that surface. Okay, so now if I go back to the hole command, and I'm going to go ahead and simply select yes, it sounds quarter 20, that's fine. And now I'm going to go ahead and select that. See that right there? That's the project curve I just created. And simply select that, and it places it right in there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that, because you could do the same thing if, and again I just show you as more of a tip there, to use that project curve again to place a curve right in this surface. And if I didn't want to do that, I could come back and do the same thing by simply selecting right there. You see that? And actually this time I selected right here instead of right there. Again, it's kind of be more of a preference. I probably prefer to put it right on that surface versus being out here. So it's kind of a preference, which way obviously best practices dictate. I probably want to do it this way right here. So I'll go ahead and do it that way. And obviously you can go ahead and push it out, so as long as it's outside of the surface, that mask there, you'll be fine. And you can see it go ahead and places it in there. Okay, so the next one is going to be adding a draft. So I'm going to go ahead and select the draft here, the draft command, and I'm going to select this surface right here, and then I'm going to start selecting. That is my my select stationary face, and then I can start selecting, let's say this face right here, that one right there. And I already had it set to 10, which is probably as close as you can. If I look at it from the top view, you can see it matches right on those. So I'm going to say yes, that's going to be fine. Select OK. And I think that's does that for that. There's another one right here. For that one, I'm going to go ahead and use the extrude, but this time I'm going to select open profile, and simply it's going in here and selecting the curves there. You can see them right there. Go ahead and select the other one right there, and then I'm going to select symmetric, and it's just a matter of dragging it out, whichever direction there. Obviously I want to go this direction. Make sure you got the right direction here. That's why I did reversed it. And you can see that now it's perfect, exactly what I'm looking for. Alright. The last thing I want to do is, obviously I want to pattern that. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my original sketches there. And simply start selecting the features that I like to pattern. Yeah, so you just got to make sure you select the correct edge there. So I'm going to try to grab that correct one here, and you can kind of see it gives you a little preview there. Obviously I want the count and spam 3 and span angle 360, obviously 3 for the distance that I want, and simply say OK. And there you go. It goes on and places it there for you. Alright, so obviously the advantage of having this master model is you can make changes to the part, have it reflect the 2D draft drawing. It's obviously much more effective workflow. So the next step is how to create the drawing. So what we need to do is go back to the application and go back to my drafting, or you could hit the Shift Control D shortcut. You can see it right there. So what that's going to do, obviously, it's going to take me back to my original legacy data, right? The one that we brought in from DWG. So what I need to do is add a new sheet. I'll leave the C size is fine. So okay. I'll go ahead and just, I'm not going to populate those blocks there, the title blocks. So the next thing is obviously to go ahead and create a base here. And I want to go ahead and place, this is going to be my, yeah, sure, my top view there. And this is going to be my front view. So what I want to do is actually want to create the right view here. So what I need to do is go back to select view here and select this right here and go back to right about there, so you kind of see an idea. And obviously if I want to create another view, an ISO view, I could go ahead and create another one. I could go back to a base view here, and this time will be an isometric view here, and just simply place that somewhere there and say okay. I can move that around. Notice we get these borders here. You could go to the file preferences, and under drafting you should be able to see under drawing view workflow, checked display border there, and there you go. So thank you for choosing Swoosh Technologies as a resource for CAD knowledge and solutions. If you have questions, you could contact our US technical support team for any questions. Thank you.